Hi everyone, my name is Steph, this is the Novelty Corner, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the weekly book steep, where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. I had a very late night last night. There's not a lot happening up here. We have peppermint tea in a possum mug, because like the possum, I would like to be sleeping right now, but I can't. So we are filming, and before you say, hey Steph, you could have probably filmed it tomorrow on Sunday when you're feeling better and more rested. I don't want to film tomorrow. Tomorrow I want to laze on the couch and do absolutely nothing, so we're filming today. And it's fine, because I don't have a lot of stats. Not because I didn't read, but because this week has been a week and I have not updated my spreadsheet. So we are going with general stats, like I read 12 things this week. Can't tell you how many pages because I haven't worked that out and I don't have the capacity to do so at the moment. So cheers. Happy tea drinking. We're going to talk about books, which most of them were rereads and the other half were kids' graphic novels. That's my week in a nutshell. I blame a hockey game with 140 penalty minutes. And this is why for most of my 40 years I have resisted being a sports fan. Let's quickly do kids' graphic novels. Let's face it, that was a fun part of this week. Mostly I'm trying to add things to the classroom graphic novel shelf because basically graphic novels is where it is at with 7 and 8 year olds. I read Cat and Cat Adventures, The Quest for Snacks, which is about 2 little cat friends who are trying to create a potion to make the ultimate unending snack, and yet they end up on a quest to try and find all of the ingredients and end up making new friends and helping those new friends out with various situations. This is a perfect first graphic novel. Big pictures, the text is very simple and quite large. Also adorable. I also read Batcat by Meggie Ramm. This is the first volume, and we have Batcat, who is neither a cat or a bat, but part of both. Also has to go on a quest to find ingredients because Batcat's house ends up haunted by a ghost. They want to get rid of the ghost. They go on a quest to find all of the things for the potion to get rid of the ghost, except, you know, they make some friends along the way. They learn a few things about themselves. They're finding out and figuring out their identity and where they fit in the world. And then they find out that maybe they actually really appreciate having their house ghost because the house ghost likes them and keeps them company. Also very adorable, also very appropriate for a first graphic novel in that sort of 7, 8 year old category. And then in a total nostalgia blast from the past, Baby Sister's Little Sister as the graphic novels. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of novels that have been adapted to graphic novels. However, in this case, I'll make an exception because these were kind of hilarious. So these are all about Karen, who is Christy's half-sister. I can't remember how it works. The first book is about Karen going to stay with Christy and Christy's family. So they share a dad. Karen believes that the old woman who lives next door is a witch and is spying on her despite being told not to spy, and ends up causing a little bit of havoc. Funny hijinks, you know, big pictures, less text than a normal graphic novel, very fun. And then the second one is Karen's roller skates, and Karen is roller skating and she ends up breaking her arm. As she retells the story of how she broke her arm, the story gets more and more elaborate because, of course, and she finds herself in competition with another friend from school who has broken his leg, and she's trying to create a bigger and better story and also trying to find someone famous to sign her cast. All of these really fun, very appropriate to the age range that I teach because I take a lot of my kids' graphic novels in. They love some of the more complex titles, but these ones are probably better suited for their reading level. So I want to have more of them. I don't mind them looking at and reading the other ones, but I know that these ones will have better comprehension rates than the other ones, where they tend to more focus on reading the words and then just looking at the pictures and figuring out what's going on. We want them to do a little bit more than that. What else? Okay, so the first book that I read this week was The Subtle Art of Folding Space by John Chu. I had this out as an audiobook on Libby. It is a, God, how to describe this book? It took me a while to figure out what was going on. So basically it's a story of generational trauma. We have Ellie, who is the daughter of someone who is, I forget what the term was because I read this right at the start of the week and my brain is not functioning properly. Basically she's an engineer. The entire world runs on these skunkworks which help keep everything in our world running smoothly, but then you have access to parallel worlds and things like that. And the engineers try and keep the machines that are functioning in our world to keep it going normal. Sorry about the slamming doors of apartments around me. Anyway, at the very start of the book, she finds out that her mother, who has been quite unwell for a period of time, Ellie has to make a decision. That decision leads to her mother's death. And her sister, who has always spent her life trying to kill Ellie for various reasons. Like, I could go into it, but that would just spoil the entire thing. Anyway, her sister blames her, and Ellie figures out that there is something going wrong in the skunkworks and that there is a separatist group that is trying to bring about the end of the world to reset everything. And so Ellie and her cousin Daniel need to try and figure out what's going on, figure out who are allies, who are not allies, and then, you know, how to fix the world. Very interesting story. I did a terrible job of explaining it. Is it the best science fiction I've ever read? No, probably not, but it was interesting, and as an audiobook as far as an audiobook went, it was pretty good to have on in the background while I was doing things. I realised I should have talked about my rereads, but yeah, no. We'll continue on because there's only one other new to me book this week, and then the rest of the books are rereads. So I read Starship by Sebastian, and I did not love it as much as I thought I was going to love it. I did enjoy it. It's not a bad book, just I think I was possibly expecting a little bit more. It is a contemporary romance. It is about two actors who have been working together on a long-running sci-fi show, but they do not like one another. They do not get along. So you have Simon and Charlie. We are fully in the perspective of Simon, who is basically the black cat of the piece. He is very much someone who he likes the way things are done, the way he likes things to be done. I don't know if he was coded as neurodivergent. To me, it read like he was. And he has had an issue with Charlie for a long time. Charlie came into acting through reality TV. And so Simon already had a low opinion of that, particularly given in the first year, Charlie had some issues around, I think it was alcoholism or something like that. Anyway, so that has perpetuated over the years, and now Simon is finally leaving the show, and he is feeling lots of different ways about it. Like he thought the show was going to be something, like in one direction, and he feels like it hasn't gone in that direction, and so he's ready to move on. He doesn't want to be typecast. At the end of the season, there's a couple of rap parties, etc. Simon begins to get to know Charlie a little bit more. He's not quite sure that he likes him, but he's kind of getting to understand him a little bit more. And then Charlie has an emergency where he needs to go and see somebody, and Simon happens to be there and offers to help to go with him on this road trip to visit someone who is very close to Charlie. We find out Charlie has been through the foster care system. He hasn't had a great time of life and all that sort of thing. And someone very close to him has been off-grid. He hasn't been able to contact him. And so they're on this road trip for, I think it's like 12 hours. And so they are literally forced into proximity and having to deal with one another. And it turns out Charlie really, really likes Simon. Simon has always been very aloof and very dismissive and demeaning, like, honestly, and I don't say this as a negative thing, but Simon comes off as very unlikable. Part of this, I think, is neurodiverse, specific personality traits that other people don't understand. So I don't necessarily think it's a negative thing, but it does come off that way when, he's dealing with someone. He's also very isolated, and he doesn't think that he has a lot of friends. He kind of hasn't realized that the cast of this sci-fi show that he's been starring on are his friends. They care about him. He's pretty much convinced that they could care less whether he's there or not. It's a forced proximity, opposites attract kind of story. It goes on, and Charlie and Simon fall for one another, and then there is an offer made to Simon about returning to the show in a different capacity. And also along the way, Simon and Charlie realize that the show writers and the producers, they're all queer. They're all queer-friendly people. And despite the fact that the network hasn't pitched it as a queer show, they have been writing the script in a subtle way that means that the actors, Simon and Charlie, have been playing it as a queer show, which is hilarious. I don't know, for me, I feel like this one was just too long. We hit a lot of the major plot points in the first half of the book. So while I love Sebastian, the writing was great, all of that, I just felt like the story itself was too long for what it was trying to do. All right, and then in terms of rereads. So last week when I read through all of the SCU hockey series by JJ Mulder, I completely forgot that I had Save the Game out as an audiobook on Libby when I read Save the Game as an ebook. So I listened to it because I was curious to see what the voice acting would do for the story. Save the Game is definitely one of my favorite books in the series because it is the one that deals with quite heavy topics, including sexual assault of one of the main characters, which is off page, but they are dealing with the aftermath of that through the entire book. It was good to go back to that one and just kind of process what I was feeling through reading that the first time last week versus this week. And then I finished my reread of The Innkeeper Chronicles by Ilona Andrews. So I went through the rest of the books in the series, which meant One Fell Sweep, Sweep of the Blade, Sweep with Me, and Sweep of the Heart, and I have zero regrets. Good life choice all around. Ilona Andrews, never a bad option. Mostly I was unable to physically sit and look at words on a page. I just wanted to listen to things, and I wanted to do diamond painting. Oh, I should go get them because they're very cute. This will explain so much about me. So I've been doing these Santa coasters for my mum for Christmas because I thought she'd find them funny. And then I also did these fridge magnets. So they're magnets on the back, but they're very cute. I like the tomato. It's very shiny. So I was doing all of that. I was attempting to immersive read Shameless Puckboy by Eden Finley and Saxon James because this is the next book in the Puckboy series that I'm up to in my reread. This is how far I got in immersive reading before I just went, I'm just going to listen to it and do my diamond painting. This is one of my favorite books in the Puckboys series because it is about Oscar, who finds himself in many a precarious sexual situation in public because he is very much an exhibitionist. And his love interest in the book is Lane, who is the PR manager for the team that he plays for. Lane basically goes, right, well, you are being a pain in the ass to everyone else that I put on you, so now you get me as permanent babysitter 24/7. And of course they fall for one another, which causes a lot of issues. Very fun, very funny, and it was great to see Oscar, you know, meet his match in Lane, which I loved. Oh my god, I forgot that I was going to show you something very exciting that came in the mail yesterday. I have my This Kingdom Will Not Kill Me prints. So we have Solentine, Arvel, Everard, and Clover. Do I frame these? Like, these are amazing. And wow, was this wrap up all over the place. So well done for sticking through it and lasting till the end. I don't know what I'm planning on reading in the upcoming week. I know I have my review titles and I know I need to read them. We'll read what we read. We're just going with it at the moment because my current year is chaos. Chaos. That's what it is. In the comments, I would love to know what you have been reading over the last week. Feel free to chat to me about it down below, or feel free to let me know if you've read any of these books. Otherwise, if you want to let me know that you're here, if you don't leave a comment, feel free to leave a cat emoji. Otherwise, I hope that wherever you are in the world, you're staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.